Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Rupp Report. I'm your host, Tyler Russell, joined by co-host Israel Schill. This episode, we're going to be going over the St. John's game, recapping Cam Williams' performance against Bellarmine on the 23rd, and rounding out our year with the final episode of this season or this year, 2025. We're going to talk about what UK needs to do heading into 2026. So, Israel. Man, it's a Christmas miracle. Let's start off that St. John's game, December 20th. Kentucky took down number 22 St. John's 78-66 in the CBS Sports Classic in Atlanta. Israel, give me some thoughts, man.
I mean, it was so similar to the IU game in a sense that I was definitely terrified after the first half. And then when they came out and just absolutely wiped the floor with them in the second half, it was like, okay, this is a good basketball team. This is how they should have performed against St. John's, honestly. So seeing how they played in the second half was so reaffirming to the thoughts that we've had about how they're slowly starting to piece the season back together, and it was great performance, I thought.
Yeah, overall, I mean, the first half, like you mentioned, it's getting all repetitive. It was another sloppy first half. The Cats were down by 7, 32-25. To your point about outscoring them, they ended up outscoring them in the second half, 53 to 34.
Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
mean, that first half, well, we got to get to this part. I think it was 7 seconds he was into the game when he
Yeah.
checked in around the media timeout. Jalen Lowe did something to his shoulder again. He was holding it, went straight to the locker room. The whole press box that I was in, it was, oh God.
Yeah.
It's because it was the whole time. It was if it happens again, it's probably cooked for him.
Yeah, I mean it's just like we talked about a little bit earlier on in these episodes, just so reminiscent of Lamont Butler last year that fans are like, okay, we have a true point guard who is so good, but if he stays healthy, we'll have no issues. But staying healthy is like the number one challenge right now. And thank God he came back in the second half, which was such a great, I think a great power move by him to be like, listen, it was a tweak. I feel fine. This is a huge game. This is important for me to be out there. Let me be out there. And the fact that they let him go play and he performed the way he did, chef's kiss, man. Chef's kiss.
Yeah, and it all ties back to that grit that, in previous episodes and, recently we were talking about them not having.
Mhm.
Past few games though, they definitely have been bringing it. They do look all around better. I mean, you got guys like Diabate diving for the ball and BG getting hype and, Jalen Lowe, just the fact that he came back, it shows that he has a lot of grit and it could just be like, oh, it's non-conference earlier part of the season. Like, I still have a whole season to go, but man, he wanted to be there. And speaking of injuries and returns, we have Jaden Quaintance finally made his Kentucky debut. It's his first game since February 23rd of last season when he injured his right, I think it was his right knee or left knee, one of his knees.
Yeah,
He
one of them.
got pretty bad. It was a torn ACL, and then it came out there was a bunch of other stuff going on there too. Nonetheless, JQ made his debut, 10 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 17 minutes. And one thing I want to touch on, 8 of those rebounds were offensive rebounds, or 5 of those were offensive rebounds. So for a Kentucky team that is still struggling to land shots, I mean, they got better and they looked good against Bellarmine. We'll get there in a second. For a team that's struggling to land shots for a full 40-minute duration of the game, offensive rebounds are going to be massive.
100% because they missed so many shots to start the game, and it was the same story versus IU, where it's like if you're gonna go miss like over half the shots that you take in the first half, having somebody out there to at least give you that second chance opportunity is massive. And so the fact that JQ was able to be out there, and I know Mo was a big part of this too, and BG a little bit towards later in the game, but having guys to be able to just give you that second chance opportunity, something that didn't seem like they had at all at the beginning of the year. So now being where they're at now, it feels great to have people down there where you're like, all right, I can take this shot. It might not be super high percentage, but I have a guy who's going to come grab this board and give us another chance on offense.
Yeah, JQ is a beast. I mean, I think he's only 18,
Yeah.
but he is a man amongst boys, and he is probably in this day and age, at least in college basketball, every game probably going to be one of the youngest,
Oh yeah.
even up there with the true freshmen. I think that's where he's marked at. But man, JQ is strong. He always has his motor going. He never takes a play off, and his presence is going to be massive. And like we touched on with those rebounds, that's going to create so many more opportunities that the Cats are going to be needing. going forward. I mean, also in that St. John game, they finished shooting 46% from the field, 25% from deep, which is not good, 82% from the free throw line. And I wanted to throw that in there because the game prior against Indiana, they only shot 66% from the free throw line. So, free throws are never a problem throughout the game. No one talks about them being an issue throughout the game until they matter. Until it's a 3 or 4 possession game and you've already missed like 9 free throws, then it's going to matter.
Yeah.
Um, but they're working on that and just Otega Owe game high 20 points, 3 steals as well. Overall, I mean, I think the first half wasn't good. The second half was phenomenal. So when you combine those together, I would say it was a pretty good game from the Cats.
No, 100%. When you are able to do this in such a high stakes environment, and regardless of whether or not people are like, St. John's isn't even that good, they were overrated at the beginning of the year, blah, 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 whatever it is, the storylines were there for both of these teams for regardless of what their records are. This is a high stakes matchup. Obviously, this isn't like you're playing in Atlanta, like neither team is at home here. So I think being able to come out, perform the way they did, and just prove to BBN that like, don't worry, we're gonna be okay was just a huge like weight off everybody's shoulders to start off, or I guess to come to the end of the non-conference play.
Yeah, and it also built a ton of momentum heading into our next topic. Kentucky beating Bellarmine after St. John's, December 23rd. They beat Bellarmine 99-85. That is now 4 straight wins for Kentucky. And Cam Williams, I did not think we'd be
Oh
having this
man.
conversation as long as we're here with the field of 68. Best game of his college
Oh
career.
yeah.
26 points, 8 made 3-pointers, 8 from 10 from deep.
Absolute flamethrower. I mean, it was like if he touched the ball, you're like, yep, that's going in.
It
He
literally was having flashbacks to Kobe Bryant.
No, honestly, I mean, this is what we talked about where it was like you bring in these pieces for one specific reason. And at the beginning of the year, you started to kind of have these guys have to play outside of what they were originally brought in for. But you bring in a guy like Cam Williams to be 3 and D in that last game was the perfect example of what you needed from him doing that 3 and D style play. I mean, 8 for 10 from deep and having one of the best defensive efficiency ratings on the team so far this year. He is exactly, obviously it took him a little bit to get to this point, but he is exactly what they need him to be at the right time in the year. So as long as he can continue to stretch through SEC play, oh man, Cam Williams is going to be a hot addition, which feels like we're getting kind of later on in this season.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, through the first 4 ranked games that Kentucky lost, obviously, including us, rightfully so, hitting the panic button. Everyone, rightfully so, is kind of
Oh yeah.
freaking out, running all over the place. But Cam Williams, if this could be his start, if he could, continue to make at least 3 or 4 threes a game going forward, or at least getting, up a ton of shots and hitting at least some threes. That is going to say a lot for this team going forward. They say you want to play your best basketball around the end of February, heading into March, and that's obviously true. But with the way that Kentucky started and the way that Cam Williams played this game, whatever happened already happened.
Yeah.
The beginning of the season already happened. If he could pick it up and if he could continue to at least make 3 or 4 threes a game going forward, he's going to be such a big asset to this team. And people thought he was going to be. And like I said, the start was the start. Whatever happened, happened. He wasn't, simply put, and he wasn't anywhere near where they wanted to be or they wanted him to be. But if this game could start building momentum going forward, I think Cam Williams could be one of the biggest assets on the team. And with that being said, I'm not saying he's the best player on the team every night. Like even this game, he was the best player on the floor, but if his shots weren't falling, he would have had a terrible game. If he wasn't able to go 8 for 10, he wouldn't have had a good game. And so it really just is all statistical, but I think Cam Williams, that's a great start for him. One way to end the year, and everyone in their minds going into 2026 with a new mindset. Whatever happened at the end of 2025 happened, but going forward, I think this is great for Cam Williams. And he's a sophomore, so last year with his one season at Tulane down in Louisiana, his best game came against UAB when he scored 24 points on 6 made 3s. How about that? Sophomore comes to Kentucky and just lights it up and has a new career record.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the spotlight doesn't really seem to bother him, I guess, when you come right to the next stage and do basically the exact same at a better level than you were doing before. The only takeaway negatively that I have from the Bellarmine game was the defense. And I don't know kind of where the disconnect was, but Bellarmine dropping 85. Like you're getting 85 hung on you by like a tiny, tiny school that just came up to D1 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Like it's not the best look. Obviously, like doesn't matter because you're scoring the points to be able to win regardless. But I don't know. Do you got any thoughts about the defense that they played in that game?
Yeah, I think defensively, Bellarmine has a really weird offense. They're always in zone on defense. They move the ball around. They barely take any dribbles. So that itself, you could watch as much film as you want. That's kind of just a weird, that's obviously part of the reason they do it is because it's so uncommon and teams aren't really built for that and know what to expect. But also, I mean, they made 26 free throws. They came into the season shooting, I think, a D1 high 80.1% from the free throw line. So giving them 30 attempts where they went 26 for 30. I mean, if you take out half of that, this is a 20-point win for Kentucky. So I think that has a big part to do with it. I do get your point, though, about defensively. And obviously, this team's still not where they want to be. They are, like you talk about, trending in the right direction. I think the fact I really wanted to hit triple digits. I think if they got 100, that always helps. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
it's
mean,
one
99, it's
point.
like close enough, you know?
Yeah, it's one difference, but like I was writing my story and I was about to put, and Kentucky reads triple digits, I think, for what would have been the fourth time this season, fifth time. And, it really doesn't matter at all, not one bit. But when you're tallying all that stuff, it's kind of just something fun to look at, 100 points. But nonetheless, I don't think there was anything that was crazy, crazy wrong defensively. But I do think obviously there's still
Yeah.
stuff that they could pick up. And like I said, it's Bellarmine. They play a weird offense, and that's Kentucky's probably not going to face another offense, not in terms of talent, but in terms of the way that they operate like Bellarmine.
No, definitely. I mean, it was weird to play your whole game through your center, who's like not arguably, but easily your best player. And so, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's definitely different, but it just kind of makes me think about how some of these smaller schools that maybe they spend less time scouting on could kind of affect them as it gets later on. Obviously you look at the last 3 years in March Madness and what's kind of 4 years-ish and what's kind of happened to them by those small teams who play a little bit differently than you're used to and by a bigger school. So I don't know, just something I kind of don't want to, I hope they don't kind of skip over too much. I will say it like took a while for coach to come out of the locker room after the game to talk to the media and everything. So I'm sure he was in there saying something about literally anything that they could have nitpicked them on. But regardless, it was a good win. They came out, played well offensively. But I mean, now they're headed into 2026. They're going to start that SEC schedule. And for as weird as the start of the season has been, this is going to be a huge test for them coming forward at Alabama.
Yeah, so heading into the new year with a 9-4 record, like we mentioned before, ending on that 4-game win streak. I mean, through 13 games, Israel, and all the games that we've seen so far, if you had to pick maybe one or two things, or just, what would you say Kentucky needs to do heading into 2026 if they want to, continue competing and hope for a Final Four? Obviously, 2026, the NCAA tournament, SEC tournament, a whole different things. Those all depend on seeding, but the regular season and through conference play, what does Kentucky have to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just really starts with what we've noticed them get better at as they've kind of fallen out of conference play, which is playing through each other. Obviously, getting off to a lot of slow starts. They've been really good at finding the one or two guys that have rhythm to kind of spark the rest of the team to build that confidence as they come out into the second half, which has caused those big runs like they did against IU and St. John's. But I think what's going to be most important, especially in such a deep conference, will be the consistent having to have a consistent like intensity on defense because if you're gonna like come down and take your guard down a little bit and let these teams get a run on you, it's gonna be quick. Like you're gonna be gone before you even realize what happened. So I think using the defense that they can when they start to piece their defense together to fuel the offense when they're having a tough start, shooting, which obviously sounds really simple. It's like good defense turns to good offense, but it worked versus St. John's and IU. So I really think it's just as simple as staying connected on both sides as a team, communicating on defense, finding out who's hot, and just sticking to that, I think, as they keep going.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think defense is a massive part of that. And basketball is a sport where obviously, like football, if you play good defense, your defensive unit does what they're supposed to do. That's it. They prevented points.
Mhm.
But your offense also has to be kind of doing their thing and working. In basketball, if your defense is forcing turnovers, getting steals, all of that stuff, that transitions to an easier offense. In football, three and out, you get the ball back, then your offense does whatever they do. That's a whole different part of it. Basketball, if you force that turnover, you could get a bucket in transition. And if your offense isn't even having a good game, I know for a fact that every single player on this Kentucky team can make a wide open layup.
Yeah.
They get a turnover, they throw it up, or they, 3-on-2, the three-man weave, then they're good. Like defense turns to offense, like you said. So I think that that's pretty massive. And as long as they stay in, again, like you said, just intense on defense and always have their hands going, shuffling their feet, always, cutting off angles. If their defense is good, then their offense is going to get better.
Yeah.
So if they could just continue playing intense defense, I think that would be really massive for them. And on top of that, this isn't something that Kentucky can do, like something Kentucky can control for next year. But we will, or I will just say in general, injuries, you just have to say your prayer. You have to hope, Kentucky fan or not, obviously you don't want to see injuries, but this team can do unbelievable things, I believe, when everyone is 100%. When one or two guys aren't 100%, or even, if they're not playing, that's when things start to fall apart. And, you could go one way and you could blame it on Pope, but you could also, say, well, he built this team expecting everyone to be healthy. And when everyone's healthy, they're good.
Yeah.
But, he can't prepare for injuries. He could try, but you never really know. So I would just say, they'd have to stay healthy, but that's not something that they can choose to do, obviously.
No, I mean, yeah, injuries is an uncontrollable, horrible thing that happens in sports, and regardless of whether you want them or not, they're going to happen to either your best player, your least favorite player, whatever. But I think that consistently, coaches had the defensive strength. Personally, that's how I feel. Like I think they have been like ready to go on defense for these last few games, but obviously the offense is where we find the scoring. But when we have JQ, and it sounds so dumb to say this, but when JQ and JLo are on the floor, this team's offense goes from here to here. And it's as simple as that, really, because these are two of the best offensive minded players that we have. And some of the, I mean, obviously when you look at JQ, it's a top 10 draft pick. JLo, one of the best point guards in the country when he's healthy. So seeing how they can impact the game by just their pure understanding and basketball IQ is so impressive. And so I think, like you said, I mean, being healthy is so important, but it's true. When you have the guys who you expected to put on the floor and they're performing the way that you assume they're going to perform, you're going to win games. And it's I really think that they can continue to do that. And JQ, man, I mean, he was great to see in that St. John's game. I'm sure they're gonna take away that minutes restriction and he'll be in the starting lineup pretty soon. And then we'll really see how they look with that true starting five. But right now, I mean, as crazy as this year started, I would be real excited if I was BBN to see how this team comes together, assuming that J-Lo doesn't kind of keep re-aggravating that shoulder, which he might, and he can't really control it. But I do think they have the right to be excited.
Yeah, and Kentucky has, heading into 2026, the last game is the 23rd on January 3rd. So that's a good time
Yeah,
off, get the rest in, especially to your point about JQ coming into the starting lineup. We don't know when that's going to be, but minutes restriction, that's definitely big. He gets his 2 games in, everything's still going according to plan. So now he's got a bunch of time off. But January 3rd, man, the Cats travel down to Tuscaloosa. The first SEC game of the season is away at Coleman Coliseum, 12 o'clock. LeBaron Philon for Alabama, averaging 21.9 per game. Crimson Tide are not, in my opinion, what they were last year, the year before, in those
no,
that
no,
Final Four year, but they are still
they're
a top
good.
program. They're dominant and their offense is very good, and they're going to force Kentucky to be uncomfortable, good amount of the game. They're averaging 93.9 points
But I
per
was
game.
just gonna say they score the ball easy.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that's LeBaron Philon and just, all the talent that they have there. So I don't know, man. I think this is a big game to start off the year. I mean, it's a testing game to start off the year. But if I was to go with a score prediction, man, I I I really, just looking at the record, I want to see Kentucky go 10-4. I want to see that 1-0 in SEC play, but I don't think they're going to win this one. I think that long break's going to help, but it's at Tuscaloosa, it's in Bama, so I think it's going to be a tough one for them. I'm going to go like 86-75 5 Alabama.
Yeah, that's fair. I was kind of thinking similarly, like I do think if this game was in Rupp, it would be a different conversation. I just think going down for your first SEC matchup with not really totally being sure of what your starting five is going to look like right now and how it's all going to shake out. Yeah, I think they'll probably drop this one, but I think it'll be close, honestly. Like I think kind of depending on what JQ looks like, I think that this game will be a little bit closer. Maybe like 89 to like 82, something, not nothing too crazy, less than 10 points. But I do think Alabama will come out with this one. Saying that, I think that this will be a great gauge for them because obviously they've had some totally random back and forth games going from, Michigan State to playing Tennessee Tech the next game. So it's really hard for you to stay in this flow state of where now we're in conference play. Start off with Alabama. If it's a bad loss, it's a bad loss. I don't think it will be. But yeah, I think they'll drop this one and then kind of be able to get back in that state of mind where they're like, all right, now we're in conference play. Let's just lock in.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think this is going to be a testing game for the Cats. And, obviously, like I said, you want to see them start SEC playoff 1-0. This would be a big one. Like, just say they did win that game, they'd be 10 and
Huge.
4, 1-0 in SEC play, road win at Bama, who's top 25 in the country.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
back-to-back ranked wins.
yeah, man, that would also boost the win streak 5 straight games. So,
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that I wasn't surprised that we weren't ranked this weekend. I thought we might squeeze in at 25, but I
yeah.
obviously if we come in with an Alabama victory that the Cats will be right back up there, and I would say probably just top 20 even. They might squeeze into that range. So we'll see. I mean, it's the time of the year where I feel like the last 3 or 4 years ish, Kentucky always has this short span of the year where they have to fight their way back out of being unranked and a bad start. And so we're kind of in that time period where it's like, all right, let's see what they can do in these, next 2 months before they really have that push at March.
Yeah, and real quick, I just want to touch on this before we go. You bring up fighting back in terms of, the way that they start the season. Kentucky can't fight back against Alabama after a bad first half. It's
Goodness.
at the point where all of that has to be out of your system. This is no more neutral site. Like if you're at Bama, you are at Bama. Kentucky's in town. It will be loud. It will be crowded. It'll be more than likely sold out. So you can't start slow. You can't take 10 minutes to get your first field goal, even 5 minutes at that point, for your first field goal. So we'll see where the Cats go. We'll see what
Yeah.
kind of team, we analyze in that
Little
game.
little Mo Diabate homecoming too.
Yes, that is true.
Little Mo
That's
Diabate. We'll see how he performs out there.
yeah, that's a big part of it too. And he's
Yeah.
been good for the Cats. So if he could stay on his path and not if he's able to tune out all the outside noise and
Yeah.
emotions that come with returning, I think that he'll be bound to have a good game. And if he does, then that only is going to make probably make up for more success for Kentucky.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah, I'd say so.
yeah, so from 2025, that is it for me in Israel. Obviously, we're not done. We're going into 2026. We're here the rest of the season, but this is our first chance in 2025. It's a big podcast thing for us, and we're just interns, but we're having a great time doing it, and we really appreciate you guys for watching. Israel, do you want to say anything?
No, I mean, yeah, just appreciate all the support, people coming back, listening to us every week. Sometimes, obviously, the first few episodes that we had weren't the most positive, happy go Kentucky episodes, but we're starting to move into that path now. So hopefully more people will consistently join us every week. And yeah, we're just really happy to be a part of these people's lives.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So that's it from us from 2025. Make sure you follow the Field of 68 on all socials, and you could listen to us or watch us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. But one more time from 2025, I'm Tyler Russell, and that's Israel Schill, and we appreciate you guys for